welcome to episode 2 of Data Trends with Maritza. I'm Craig Stewart, CEO and founder of Dalebrook Media, and joining me, our title partner, Maritza Curry from RCS. Maritza, how's it going?
Fantastic. Can't wait for this weekend. It's going to be a big one. Springboks are going to win. So, it's all good. It's all good.
Awesome. Yeah, good stuff. I was actually going to ask you, so our topic, the trend for this week or this episode is augmented analytics, part of which would obviously be predictive analytics. I was actually going to ask you your prediction based on that for the rugby,
Springboks.
But I think every South African's got to say Springboks, right?
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Yeah.
No doubt. So,
yes.
Yeah. I very rarely wear this, but it's Book Friday.
Absolutely. Looking good. Looking like a super fan.
Yeah. Thank you very much. All right. So I think maybe just to recap, Maritza, so our first trend was data sharing, which was a really, really important area for us to cover. Went into detail of that. Anybody who hasn't seen it, check out the Dalebrook Media page and you'll find it there. So now we move on to augmented analytics. Analytics itself has been around for a fairly long time. Augmented always makes it seem like, what's the next step? This is going to be quite big. So why don't you take us through a little bit, just I guess in general, augmented analytics, what it means, where it's in play, and then we can start to have a look at some of the things like the drivers and the challenges and all those sorts of things.
Okay, cool. So augmented analytics has also been around for a very long time. Augmented analytics, we've seen it embedded in, for example, in retail, in merchandising, planning tools, etc. It's really been with us for a very long time. But basically what it is giving normal business users, I'm doing non-technical business users, advanced analytics capability. So citizen data scientists, citizen analysts, having the capability of doing a forecast or using a predictive model without actually having to have a degree in statistical mathematics to be able to use that model. So it's either embedded in a BI tool, and you don't even know you're using it, or that you're using an AI model that sits behind it, or it's using a dedicated augmented analytics platform. And there are loads of these analytics platforms in the market.
Yeah. Okay, so let's maybe just have a bit of a chat around business users, right? I mean, we've been talking about self-service analytics for a while through the events and everything that we do. Where from the conversations that you've had and the community and stuff, where do you sort of see most of the organizations that we work with in terms of their maturity, or I guess the penetration of use of self-service analytics, by business users, not sort of just, okay, well, we've got a data scientist sitting in our team, that person does all the work and they give us the model and the insights and we action that. Who's really got to grips with this whole self-service analytics in the hands of the business user, do you think?
It's actually a really difficult question to answer, because I want to say, companies are actually getting this right. It's giving the value that we know we can get from augmented analytics. But the truth of the matter is that we're still trying to get just normal self-service BI right. Yeah. And this is self-service data science. This is self-service on steroids. Yeah. So whatever basic things we have to do to get self-service BI right, you have to do those things to be able to get augmented analytics right.
Yeah.
But it depends. It depends on how big your scope is. If you basically, if it's just using the augmented analytics capability of your current BI tool, you probably don't have a big problem, because you probably already doing data literacy, education, etc. But if you go to that next step, where you actually have citizen data scientists sitting in your business areas and they are doing some hardcore forecast models or using some of these tools like the platforms, then I would say you need to have quite a high data analytics maturity to be able to make that work, because you still need to get the basics right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And is it sort of, around in context of being able to ask the right questions and develop the right models around the right things? And that's where the business user holds the power, especially as you say, that it's
Yeah.
much more around sophisticated analysis. It's not sort of just, historical, sort of look back on,
Hmm.
relatively sort of rudimentary things, but it's much more around, forecasting, financial planning, all those
Yes.
sorts of things. So it's really a lot of it comes down to the understanding of the user of their business area. And that's why it's so
Yes.
important to have this within the hands of the business user, right?
Correct. 100%. And again, depending on the scope of how you roll this out, your business user absolutely needs to understand their business, but they also have to understand that whatever inputs you give
Mm.
to this model, which is basically a black box,
Yeah.
and the answer you get, you have to be savvy enough to understand, okay, but this answer doesn't look right. Um, so did I give it the right
Mm.
inputs? So
Yeah.
so there's definitely a different level of data literacy
Mm.
that you need, rather than your more traditional data literacy, I would say. So
Mm.
yes, you don't need statistical and mathematical background to use
Yeah.
these tools, but you need to understand analytics. You still need
Mm.
an understanding of data and how it works.
For sure. So this is kind of where we talk about the checks and balances
Mm,
in it, making sure that what is actually, obviously the inputs need to be correct, the outputs therefore need to be accurate, but actually understanding, is it the right thing? And it's not something that somebody can kind of go, oh, looks okay. These are, as we said, sophisticated things. They're
yeah.
probably really, really big decisions for an organization. So are there those checks and balances in play? Do you think there's enough of, sort of an
Mm,
understanding of how it's all working? I know we talk about explainability and trusting the AI black box, but who
mm.
kind of governs that and makes sure it's spitting out the right answer?
Yeah, again, I want to say yes, we really at that point as an industry that we're thinking about model governance and it's gone mainstream, but we're not. Again, we're struggling with normal self-service BI governance. We don't even do
Yeah.
that very
Yeah.
well, to be very honest. So I think there are some companies, and I'm going to say it's probably industry related. So we talked about retail when we
Mm.
started.
Yeah.
I think that merchandisers are really good at using these tools because they get trained
Yeah.
to use it. And if you have a very experienced planners using some of these tools, they understand what their size curves should look like, for example, or their location distribution,
Mm.
etc. So they can interpret it. Um, the other industry where I think we have a very strong analytical capability, even in the business, is banking. And I think because there are so many checks and balances in banking anyway,
Mm.
that a lot of organizations or a lot of South African banks are actually doing advanced analytics or model governance very,
Mm.
very well. But if you are going to roll out augmented analytics and uh, creating this capability in your business, your citizen data scientist, citizen analyst, then you have to bring them into the fold
Yeah.
of your model governance forum, because it can't just stay with your data science team. You have to bring these people in, so you have to expand it.
Yeah.
Um, so I think in certain industries we're doing it well, simply because it is well governed. And then there are other industries where we're doing it well because it's such an established capability.
Yeah. And I guess even taking it out of, I guess maybe drilling down out of just the industry, sort of,
Mm,
departments within organizations within those industries. So this, augmented analytics, would you say it's something that is, fit for purpose across all units within an organization, or it's kind of needs to be used quite specifically? There's no point trying to build up this big augmented analytics capability for something that, reasonably simple
mm,
sort of
mm.
environment.
I think you can use it in any of your division.
Mm.
I would say that the scope of how you're using it will be different. So again, if we look at retail, your merchandising team, yes, you can give them really sophisticated tools
Yeah.
because they're trained to use it. But in your supply chain, maybe on the distribution side, you want something that is not less sophisticated, but where the user doesn't have to do that much work. So maybe, what you give your fleet drivers is an app that helps them optimize their route, but it's really at the press of the button.
Yeah.
So, that user doesn't have to think about what the inputs are, etc. So I think it's how you roll it out in your organization will depend on, firstly, the requirement of the end user, how
Yeah.
sophisticated it has to be, but also the skill set.
Yeah. Okay, for sure. All right, so let's then start looking at some of the drivers of this trend.
Mm,
I mean, it sort of started the conversation around augmented analytics has been around for a while. Like, why is it on your
hmm
trend list now, 2023, and what's
mm.
driving it? Sort of, it's kind of been obviously there and thereabouts, but now it's really moving up your rankings. So what's
Yeah.
driving it?
So as per usual, it's a combination of things,
Mm.
technology and people.
Yeah.
So the first driver is every single data strategy, it feels like to me,
Mm.
has data democratization as a pillar.
Yeah.
So we want to democratize our data. We want to make it as easy as possible for our business users to access data, to process that data, and to use that data and get the insights. So
Yeah.
this is a big driver for organizations in terms of just giving normal people access to data and insights. Um, the other one is speed to insight. So
Yeah.
again, we talked about how competitive the business environment has become,
Yeah.
and everyone is chasing the advanced analytics advantage.
Yeah.
So, or the advantages that advanced analytics can give you. So, automation, for example, that is quite a big component of augmented analytics, and that is something more and more organizations are focusing on automation to get better
Yeah.
efficiencies, etc. So, speed to insight definitely uh, a driver. And then, from a technology point of view, just the availability of no code, low code platforms. And like I said, when we started the conversation, there loads of these platforms available now.
Mm.
And just about anyone can go onto the platform, choose a model,
Yeah.
give it some inputs and get an answer back, visualized,
Yeah.
everything done for you.
Mm.
So it's very, very accessible. And then I think for me, the most interesting one is around skill.
Yeah.
And there's kind of two schools of thought on this. The one is that we don't have enough data science skill in the market for the demand. So organizations use augmented analytics to overcome that gap. But then there's another school of thought leaders is saying, well, we have enough data scientists. In fact, we have an overabundance of data
Mm.
scientists
Mm.
in the market. But firstly, they've just become too expensive. So a lot of organizations
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
cannot afford a team of 30 or 50 data scientists. But also it's very difficult because it's so competitive, it's very difficult to find the right data science skills for your
Mm.
organization. And again, that gap augmented analytics can overcome that gap.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, it's technology and people.
Mm. Mm. Is this I mean, this is, we're kind of very much going down the side of skills here, but does augmented analytics sort of solve that problem of, is it easier to train the data scientist with all the skills on the business context and understanding and all that sort of thing? Or is it easier now with these tools with AI built in to
Mm.
understand everything for the business user to kind of upskill on some of their data science work? And that's kind of,
Oh,
because this
that
is a
is,
long conversation that we
yeah,
could have, around like what is the better option? Do you upskill the
yeah.
data scientists into business literacy, or do you
Mm.
kind of that data literacy onto the business side? And that convergence is always a very
Such
interesting
a good
area.
question. It's
Mm.
it's it's really making me think, and I'm going to say it really depends on your organization, your culture, where you are in your data journey. So if as an organization, one of your strengths is that you have a very um, mature analytics community, whether it's
Yeah.
centralized or decentralized in the business, but you don't have the funding to pay for a data science platform or for
Yeah.
these very, very expensive tools, then I would say it would be easier for you to teach your analysts to use these augmented analytics tools than it would be to go and try and build a whole data science competency. However, if you, from a maturity point of view, your data platform is very mature, you already have a data science capability, or that is part of your strategy, that you want to build an in-house data science or advanced analytics capability, then definitely I would say put the effort into helping your data scientists to understand the business.
Yeah.
So it really depends on your organization, where you are in your journey.
Yeah, for sure. All right, that's a big topic. I think that's something we can cover off at some point. So people listening,
Definitely.
put your sort of thoughts and everything down in the comments, and we'll pick that up. All right, so let's spend the last sort of minute or so, Maritza, just thinking about what's next for augmented analytics. Now, this is a trend that you obviously say it's coming up. It's there's some key drivers behind it. What's sort of the future state, would you say, of augmented analytics?
I think augmented analytics is going to follow the same path as just about everything, every single trend in the industry.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to look at this and say, this is a great idea. I've got really specific problems this can solve my problems.
Yeah.
And they're going to pull the trigger on it, whether that is, buying the technology or subscribing to an analytics platform or training up their users. And then they're going to get to a point it's like, okay, but we're not getting any value from it. What's going on here? We thought we did everything right. And then everyone's going to like, oh, okay, but the data is still the star.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
and then we're going to come back full circle back to okay, did we think about data quality? Did we think about how we use data in this new platform? How does it integrate with our current platform? So I think it is going to grow, definitely, because it obviously does solve real problems.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to slow down. We're going to take a few steps back, fix a few things, and then we'll move forward again.
Yeah.
I suppose what I wouldn't want to see is what we see with self-service BI now, which is literally a trend every single year and has been a trend for 15 years. We just don't get to that point where it's becoming mainstream. And I hope we don't get there with augmented analytics as well. I hope we've learned and we can solve these data management, data governance problems and people problems, change management problems before we embark on these journeys.
Yeah, at the risk of kind of starting a whole nother thread, I think the people and change management side seems to me, just from the conversations I'm having, not solving itself, but I think, younger generations who are more comfortable with technology and all that sort of thing are, much more comfortable with just going, okay, cool, I'll play with the tool. I'll kind of figure it out. Like it's a relatively safe sandbox, perhaps, that we can do some cool things in. And that seems to be, I mean, it's almost, I wouldn't say generation, but, that's kind of where it's headed, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it might actually just become an expectation for people. If you want me to do my job and you want me to do it well, you've got to give me these tools.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. I haven't thought about that, but I think you're right.
All right, cool. Well, let's keep our finger on that and maybe discuss it in the next couple of months. So, Maritza, thanks again. Episode 2 done, augmented analytics to go with our first trend, data sharing. Always good to chat to you. Enjoy the game. Make sure that you've got something to calm you down. Whatever your choice of whatever you use to calm yourself
I'll make
down.
Sure.
During the game, I think, it's
nerve-wracking.
Can clearly go either way. I mean, that's, got to be a winner, got to be a loser. I think what we can guarantee, it's going to be an absolute nail biter.
I think so. Absolutely. It's a little bit like rolling out self-service BI. So we're well practiced.
It's going to go either way, but it's going to be a hell of a scary.
Exactly.
Awesome. Great stuff. Maritza, thanks so much. Good to chat to you.